Hello, my name is Jen. Today, let's crochet a reusable cozy for our to-go coffee cup. It will fit a grande or a venti or any cup of a similar size, around 9.5 inches around. I also added a little pumpkin applique just to celebrate the fall season. For this project, I'm using medium weight yarns by Lion Brand. I have the specific names, colors, and links for you in the description below. I'll be using a 5mm crochet hook. I have a yarn needle and a pair of scissors. I keep a stitch marker handy, and you'll also need a ruler. I love all of the green tones in this variegated yarn that's called evergreen. You can kind of pick and choose the greens that you would like to have appear in your cozy. I've decided to trim off this little bit of light green and start with this richer blue-green color. The to-go cup coffee cozy is made using a series of triangles. The very first triangle is also going to serve as the gauge for this project. You'll begin your first triangle using your evergreen yarn and chaining 11. Here is our beginning chain, and we're going to be working row 1 into the back bumps of our beginning chain. Row 1 begins with a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Once again, we're working in the back bumps only. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. So we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. At the end of row 1, we'll chain 1 and turn, and row 1 will have a total of 10 stitches. Here we are finishing up row 1, and I always like to recommend that you double check your stitch count, especially at the beginning of a project. So let's just count quickly, make sure that we have a total of 10 single crochets, and then we can finish off row 1 with a chain 1 and turn. Row 2 begins by single crocheting 2 together. Insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Now, work 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. Row 2 is completed by working another single crochet 2 together over the last 2 stitches. Yarn over and pull through these 3 loops, and then chain 1 and turn. Row 2 has a total of 8 stitches. Row 3 is nice and straightforward. You're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across, then chain 1 and turn. Row 3 will also have a total of 8 stitches. Row 4 begins with a single crochet 2 together. So we're going to single crochet these first 2 stitches together just as we did before in row number 2. And then we're going to work 1 single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. When we come to the very last 2 stitches of row 4, we're going to single crochet 2 together once again, and then we'll chain 1 and turn. Row 4 will have a total of 6 stitches. Here we are on row 5, which is another nice and easy one. Simply single crochet in each stitch across, chain 1 and turn. Row 5 will have a total of 6 stitches. As you can see, our triangle is coming along. In fact, we're halfway through, and with row 6, we're going to begin with a single crochet 2 together once again. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. We'll finish this row with another single crochet 2 together and then chain 1 and turn. Row 6 will have a total of 4 stitches. For row 7, we'll be working 1 single crochet in each stitch across. Then we'll chain 1 and turn. Row 7 has a total of 4 stitches. Row 8, we're going to single crochet 2 together twice. Afterwards, we'll chain 1 and turn, and row 8 will have a total of 2 stitches. Row 9 is a short one, simply single crochet in each stitch across. There are only 2 stitches, and then you're going to chain 1 and turn. Row 10 is our final row, and it consists of 1 single crochet 2 together, and then we're going to chain 1 and turn. Before we do that chain 1 and turn though, let's have a look at our triangle and also take some measurements. So here is our triangle. It consists of 10 rows, beginning with 10 stitches and working our way down to 1. Each side of your triangle should measure as close to 2.5 inches as you can possibly get it. If yours is much larger or much smaller, please adjust your hook size to obtain this gauge. As always, if you have any questions when you're following one of my tutorials, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. I am always happy to help. With our gauge taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and finish off row 10 of this triangle by chaining 1 and turning. Now we're on triangle number 2. Row 1 of triangle 2 is worked across the end rows down the left side of the triangle. Simply place 1 single crochet in each end row across, and then you'll chain 1 and turn. Row 1 will have a total of 10 stitches. If you have never worked in end rows before, like we're doing here, it can feel a little bit awkward at first. Just take your time as you're working across. I like to be careful to insert my hook under just a couple of threads and not leave any large gaps in the fabric. When you come to your last stitch, the 10th single crochet of this row, we are, instead of putting it directly in that end row, we are going to cheat to the left just a little bit because we really want to line up the corners of our triangles. This is also going to give our cozy nice clean edges, which we'll start to see a little bit more once we have 2 or 3 triangles assembled. I am happy with my stitch placement, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn and head into row 2. Row 2 for this triangle is the exact same row 2 as we did for triangle number 1. It begins by single crocheting 2 together, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. We'll single crochet 2 together over the last 2 stitches, and then we'll chain 1 and turn. Row 2 will have a total of 8 stitches. For rows 3 through 10, we're going to repeat rows 3 through 10 from triangle number 1. I have all of those directions right here for you. You can hit pause and finish this triangle. You can also rewind and follow the directions as we work them up in triangle number 1. I have all of those rows time-stamped, and I'll meet you back here at the end of row 10. Well, hello again. I am just finishing up triangle number 2, that was row 9, and row 10 is just a single crochet 2 together, and triangle number 2 is complete. Before I do that chain 1 and turn, let's have a look at the shape of our fabric. We have 2 triangles and they're both going in different directions. But now we're going to chain 1, turn, and work triangle number 3. Now we're going to be working triangle number 3 the same way we worked triangle number 2. We're going to be working across the end rows down the left side of the triangle. You're going to work 1 single crochet into the end of each row, and then you'll chain 1 and turn. Row 1 of triangle 3 will have a total of 10 stitches. When we get to the very last stitch of row 1, just like we did on triangle number 2, we're going to cheat a little bit to the left of that last end row just to join those corners together. Then we're going to chain 1 and turn and head into row 2. For row 2, you're going to single crochet 2 together, and then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. When you come to the last 2 stitches, you'll work another single crochet 2 together and then chain 1 and turn. We're going to carry on with triangle number 3, just as we did with triangle number 2, following those directions for rows 3 through 10 from triangle number 1, which I have written for you right here. You can pause the video now and finish up triangle number 3, and I'm going to meet you at the end of row 10. Here we are. I just finished row 10. We now have 3 triangles. My finger motions are kind of cracking me up a little bit here, but what I am trying to illustrate is this time we are not going to turn our work at the end of row 10. We are going to not turn our work and just work down the left side of this triangle. If we were to continue turning our work at the end of the triangles from this point on, we would end up with a hexagon. What we're going for here is a trapezoid with the long sides being parallel. So from this point forward, we will not be turning our work at the end of row 10. I hope all of that made sense, and as you can see, we are now starting triangle number 4. Row 1 of triangle 4 is worked in the same manner. We're going to go across the end rows down the left side of the triangle, working 1 single crochet into the end of each row. Once again, when you get to the last single crochet of this row, place it as close as you can to the corner of the previous triangle. So we're really trying to match the points of the triangles, which will make for nice parallel lines for the outside of our shape. You're going to have a total of 10 stitches in this row, and then you'll chain 1 and turn, and then you'll carry on with rows 2 through 10, which you might even have memorized by now, but just in case you don't, I have them written for you right here. I am just finishing up row 10. Remember, at the end of this triangle, we will not be turning our work. But before I work that chain 1, let's go ahead and have a look at our fabric. We have a total of 4 triangles, each worked in a different direction, and now it's time to head in to triangle number 5. Here we are working row 1 of triangle 5. Once again, you do not turn your work before beginning row 1. And just as with all of our previous triangles, row 1 consists of 1 single crochet at the end of each row, working down the left side of the triangle for a total of 10 stitches. The main reason I'm showing you row 1 of each triangle is it gives me a chance to reiterate whether or not we are turning our work before we begin each triangle. Another pattern note that has to do with row 1 is that on the very last single crochet of row 1, rather than working that last single crochet directly into the last end row, we're cheating that just a little bit to the left and aligning the points of our triangles or connecting those points as closely as possible. Now that we've completed row 1, there's nothing left to do for triangle number 5 except for rows 2 through 10, which I have written out for you below. And I'm just finishing up row 10 of triangle number 5. We've got 5 triangles now, and we've got one more to go. So with one last triangle, we're going to chain 1. We're not going to turn our work, and we're going to work down the left side of this triangle. Row 1 is a repeat of row 1s from the past. Just working down these end rows, we're going to place 1 single crochet in each row across, and then we'll chain 1 and turn. Okay, I have to admit I sped that up a bit. You have watched me crochet row 1 4 times, and now you're an expert, so I'm just going to give you those directions on the screen for rows 2 through 10 so you can conveniently pause and finish up this last triangle, and I'll meet you at the end of triangle number 6. We made it triangle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Aside from the fact that the beginning chain of triangle number 1 sticks out just a little bit, we've got these nice clean edges, and we're ready to chain 1 and finish our shape. In order to turn our fabric into a ring that will fit around a coffee cup, we're going to join the 2 short edges together. We'll do so by folding the bottom up to the top, and we'll crochet these 2 short sides together by working single crochets across in the end rows, this time working through both layers of fabric. First, I'll insert my hook through the lower right corner of triangle number 1, and then I'll continue to insert my hook through the first end row of triangle number 6. Yarn over and pull up a loop, working through both layers of fabric, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So just a straightforward single crochet, and the only difference here is that we're working through 2 layers of fabric instead of 1. Once you've completed these 10 single crochets across the end rows, you can go ahead and cut your working yarn, pull the cut in through that last loop on your hook, and then turn your work right side out. Before we weave in these loose ends, let's go ahead and look at our cozy. So our cozy is a collection of 6 triangles, all going in different directions. Our cozy grips onto the cup and has a really sturdy feel. It has the stretch we need it to have without worrying about it stretching out of shape. As you can see, the last triangle is quite a different color from the first. If that color variation bothers you, you could certainly use a solid green yarn. I kind of like the variation in colors because it really makes the triangle shapes within the fabric stand out. As you can see, right now my cozy is measuring 3.5 inches wide. This is a little more narrow than I want it to eventually be, but after putting it onto a cup a couple of times, it does stretch out just a little bit and becomes a very nice fit. I've gone ahead and turned my cozy wrong side out once again, just so I can weave in the beginning and ending tails before moving on to the trim. When you're weaving in your loose ends, I always like to recommend that you make 3 passes with your needle just to ensure a very secure hold. Once you finish weaving in those loose ends, it's time to collect your first trim color, which today is going to be Arrowwood, which is this lovely warm yellow. We are going to join with a single crochet to the corner of the first triangle, which you can tell because it's that one edge that's a little bit raised up from having the beginning chain. Instead of working into the opposite end of that chain, remember we worked row 1 into the back bumps, but instead of working into the top 2 threads of the chain, we are actually going to work these single crochets in the space between the stitches just for triangle number 1, and this is just going to help level out our edges. So we're just working 10 single crochets evenly across this side of our first triangle. Next, you're going to continue by working 10 single crochets evenly across the sides of the next 2 triangles. Now this is going to be what we've gotten used to. You're actually working 1 stitch into the end of each row along the sides of these next 2 triangles as we're working our way around the edge of this side of our cozy. Our trim rounds will each consist of 30 stitches. So I just finished that second triangle and I've got 1 more triangle to go, and I'm just going to place 1 single crochet into the end of each row until I'm back to the beginning of this round of trim. Feel free to double check that stitch count, make sure that you have a total of 30 stitches, and then it's time to cut your yarn. Pull your hook so that yarn is coming through the last stitch, and we're going to go ahead and thread our cut yarn onto a yarn needle and finish this trim round with an invisible finish off. To work this finish, we're going to skip the first stitch of the round and insert our needle under both of the top threads of the next stitch. Then we're going to go back to the very last stitch of the round and insert our needle between the front and back loops of that stitch, and we're also going to pick up this little thread just behind the back loop. It just creates a little bit more of a stable hold. When you pull the yarn, you're not going to pull it until it's completely tight. You're going to pull it until it forms the shape of a stitch. So it's going to replace that stitch that we skipped and give us a very seamless looking finish. And we should still have a stitch count of 30 stitches. Then you can proceed to weave in these loose ends, and we're going to repeat the process for the other edge of the trim. Once again, you're going to join with a single crochet in the corner of any triangle. To do so, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. This will count as your first single crochet, and then continue to work 10 single crochets evenly across the sides of all 3 triangles. And then you can finish off with another invisible finish off, just like we did for the first trim. We're going to finish off our cozy with another round of trim on each side, this time with the color Koi. We're going to join with a single crochet in any stitch and then simply work a single crochet in each stitch around. We'll also be finishing these trim rounds with an invisible finish off, and then weaving in all of our loose ends. Once again, each round of trim will have a total of 30 stitches. Once you've completed your trim, you can have a look at your cozy and kind of decide which of the triangles you want to be the front of your cozy. So I like this triangle right here, and now it's time to make a little pumpkin for the center of that triangle. Let's continue working with our yarn in the color Koi and crochet a little pumpkin applique. Leaving about an 8-inch beginning tail for sewing later, we're going to begin by chaining 4. And then working into the back bumps of this beginning chain, we're going to work a single crochet into the second chain from our hook, and into each of the next 2 stitches. There's 1, and here's the second one. So we're working a total of 3 single crochets across our beginning chain. And now we're going to continue on working in the round by chaining 1 and turning our beginning chain so that we're going to work back across in the opposite direction. Work 1 single crochet in each of these 3 stitches back across. After the 3rd stitch, chain 1, and we're ready for round 2. Continuing in the same direction, we're going to work 2 single crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. And then we're going to work a slip stitch in that chain 1 space. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on your hook. Then continue by working 2 single crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. This is going to bring us back to the top of our pumpkin and the next chain 1 space where you're going to work another slip stitch. Now you can cut off your working yarn. I like to pull that last loop through to the back side of the pumpkin. And then I can insert the cut end of my working yarn through that loop and pull tight. This just means that that slip knot will be on the back side of our work. Now that we have our little pumpkin shape, I'm going to go ahead and get that evergreen yarn and give the pumpkin a little stem. We're going to join with a single crochet in the chain 1 space, or you can just eyeball any space at the top of your pumpkin. So insert your hook into that space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and now we're going to chain 2, work a slip stitch into the second chain from your hook, and then work a slip stitch into that same chain 1 space or into the same stitch where you started your stem. Cut your yarn, pull that working yarn through the loop on your hook, and now you can weave in these loose ends from your evergreen on the back side of your pumpkin. We are saving the beginning and ending tails of the koi or the orange color to sew our pumpkin onto the cozy. Once you have those loose ends from the stem woven in onto the back side of your pumpkin, then we can move on to the final step, which is sewing our pumpkin onto our cozy. Position your pumpkin on your chosen triangle. It can look cute to have your pumpkin at a little bit of an angle, or of course you can also have it straight up and down. I just like to center it in one of those triangles. Using one of the loose ends from the pumpkin, I'm going to attach it to the cozy by working my needle under a few threads of the cozy and then back under a few threads of the pumpkin. And I'm just going to go back and forth and back and forth and work my way around the pumpkin. Can I just take a moment to apologize for how close the camera is here? I had zoomed in for crocheting the pumpkin and I kind of forgot to zoom back out again, so I'm sorry that this is so close up. Another thing that I thought I would share here is that you can kind of shape your pumpkin as you're sewing it onto the cozy. When I get to the sides, I'm stretching them out just a little so that my pumpkin looks a little bit more plump. Once I get halfway around with this loose end, I'm weaving it in and then I'll pick up with the second loose end and finish sewing the pumpkin. So here we are moving on to the other side, and you can see I'm kind of taking the time to center the pumpkin on that triangle and really shape the pumpkin so that I'm happy with the design. Here's our finished cozy, and in just a minute, I will realize how close up I am and zoom out. Yay! I do love the variegated green so that even though I made these two with the same yarn, they have their own unique appearance. If your cozy's feeling a little tight, you can give it a little stretch like this, and then it should fit onto your cup nice and easy. These cozies do such a nice job of molding onto your cup, and after you've used one a few times, they really do maintain their shape and their grip on your coffee. This is important stuff. And as an added bonus, this is a personal discovery, the pumpkin makes a very nice thumb rest, and if you line up the opening of your coffee cup to the pumpkin, you will always know where to sip. Now that our cozy has been on and off of the coffee cup a couple of times, you can see that the width is measuring in right at 4 inches. I hope you enjoyed this week's project. I hope you enjoy using your reusable coffee cozy this fall. This is one of those patterns where after you work through it for the first time, it's really easy to remember and actually quite quick to make up. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Please hit like and subscribe. I post new patterns on Tuesdays, and I just want to thank you for watching today. I'll see you next time.